Nia's hands trembled as she stood in the doorway of Lorenzo Giordano's private study, watching the most powerful man in New York City stare at a whiteboard covered in complex mathematical equations. His jaw was clenched, his expensive suit jacket discarded on the leather chair behind him. For 3 days, accountants, financial experts, and even a mathematics professor had tried to solve the impossible problem, a cryptographic algorithm hidden in numbers that would either expose his rival's money laundering operation or cost him everything. And now, as she clutched her cleaning supplies, Nia realized she knew exactly how to solve it. The problem wasn't whether she could help him. The problem was whether revealing her hidden genius would expose the identity she'd spent 5 years carefully concealing. Because the truth was, Nia Robinson wasn't just a maid. She was a mathematical prodigy who disappeared from MIT, and if Lorenzo discovered who she really was, everything she'd sacrificed to stay hidden would crumble in an instant. If you want to discover how this impossible situation began and what happened when Nia made her choice, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one to life. 3 days earlier, Nia had been scrubbing the marble floors of the Giordano mansion's east wing when she first heard the shouting. It wasn't unusual for raised voices to echo through the sprawling estate. Lorenzo Giordano didn't build a criminal empire by being soft-spoken, but this was different. This was panic. She kept her head down as 2 men in expensive suits rushed past her, their faces pale. One of them was on his phone speaking rapid Italian. Nia understood every word, though she'd never let anyone in this house know that. She understood a lot of things she wasn't supposed to. "The algorithm is impossible," one man was saying. "We've brought in 3 experts. If we don't solve it by Friday, the Volkov family will move 50 million through their system, and we'll have no proof of their operations." Nia's hand froze on the mop handle. She knew exactly what kind of algorithm they were talking about. Modular arithmetic combined with elliptic curve cryptography, the kind of problem that had fascinated her during her graduate studies at MIT, back when she was someone else entirely. Back when she was Dr. Nia Robinson, youngest mathematics doctorate in the university's history. Before everything fell apart, she forced herself to keep cleaning, to remain invisible. That's what she'd become over the past 5 years, a shadow moving through the mansion, just another employee in the black uniform that allowed her to blend into the background. No one looked twice at the maid, no one asked questions, and that's exactly how she needed it to stay. Lorenzo Giordano appeared at the top of the grand staircase, and despite herself, Nia's breath caught. She'd been working in his mansion for 6 months, and she still wasn't immune to his presence. He was tall, powerfully built, with dark hair threaded with silver at the temples and a jawline that looked carved from marble. But it was his eyes that unsettled her most. Dark, intelligent, missing nothing. The kind of eyes that could see through carefully constructed lies. "Get Marco," he said to one of his men, his voice low and controlled. "Tell him, if he can't solve this problem by tomorrow night, I'll find someone who can." The men scattered. Lorenzo descended the stairs with the grace of a predator, and Nia kept her eyes on the floor she was mopping. She'd learned early that the key to invisibility was never making eye contact with powerful men, but as he passed her, he paused. "How long have you worked here?" His voice was different up close, rough, with an edge that made her pulse quicken. 6 months, sir," she said softly, keeping her southern accent thick, nothing like the crisp academic tone she'd once used to present research papers. "You're thorough." He glanced at the gleaming floor. "The last maid missed corners." "Thank you, sir." He studied her for a moment longer than necessary, and Nia felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Then he nodded and continued toward his study, already pulling out his phone. She exhaled slowly. Close call. Too close. That evening, as she prepared to leave through the service entrance, she overheard more of the conversation. Lorenzo's study was directly above the staff room, and sound carried through the old mansion's ventilation system. She shouldn't have listened. She should have grabbed her coat and left, but she couldn't help herself. "The sequence is based on prime number distribution," a nasally voice was explaining. "But there's something else embedded in it. A pattern we can't identify. Without solving it, we can't trace the money flow or predict their next move. I'm paying you $3,000 an hour, Lorenzo's voice cut through. Are you telling me you can't solve a math problem? This isn't just a math problem, Mr. Giordano. This is next-level cryptographic theory. Whoever designed this was a genius. It would take someone with a doctorate in advanced mathematics and years of experience with... I don't need excuses, I need solutions. There was a pause. Then the nasally voice again, quieter. There was someone. A prodigy who disappeared 5 years ago. Dr. Nia Robinson from MIT. She published a paper on exactly this type of algorithmic... Nia didn't hear the rest. She was already out the door. Her hands shaking as she walked the 6 blocks to the cramped studio apartment she shared with her younger sister, Kira. Someone had mentioned her name. Her real name. After 5 years of running, of hiding, of becoming invisible, someone had spoken it aloud in Lorenzo Giordano's study. "You're pale," Kira said when Nia walked in. At 19, her sister was the only person who knew the truth about who Nia really was and why they'd been forced to disappear. What happened? Nothing. Nia set down her bag and headed for the small kitchen. Long day. Nia. Kira's voice was soft but firm. "Talk to me." Nia turned. Her sister sat on their worn couch, medical textbooks spread around her. Kira was brilliant too, studying nursing at community college, working toward the future Nia had once dreamed of for both of them. Before their stepfather had found them, before Nia had testified against him and his associates, before the threats had started, forcing them to vanish into new identities. "They mentioned my name today," Nia said quietly. "At the mansion. Someone remembers the work I did." Kira's face went pale. "Did anyone connect it to you?" "No, I don't think so. I was just the maid mopping the floor." She laughed bitterly. "Invisible, like always." But that night, Nia couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the problem Lorenzo was trying to solve. Her mind, trained and sharp despite 5 years of disuse, couldn't help but engage with it. Prime number distribution, elliptic curves. She could see the solution forming in her head like a puzzle clicking into place. By 3 a.m., she'd worked it out on the back of used envelopes, unable to resist. By morning, she knew she had a choice to make. 2 days later, Nia was cleaning the hallway outside Lorenzo's study when she heard the crash. The sound of something heavy hitting the wall, followed by a string of Italian curses that would have made a sailor blush. She hesitated, then knocked softly on the door. "What?" The word was practically a growl. "Sir, I heard a noise. Is everything—" "Come in." Nia pushed open the door and immediately wished she hadn't. Lorenzo stood in the center of the room, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his hair disheveled. The whiteboard that dominated one wall was covered in equations and diagrams, and a chair lay on its side where he'd apparently thrown it. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll come back." "No." He turned to look at her, and the expression on his face stopped her cold. Frustration, exhaustion, something that looked almost like desperation. "You know what the biggest problem with being me is?" Nia blinked. This was the most personal thing he'd ever said to her. "No, sir." "Everyone assumes I can solve everything with money or power." He gestured at the whiteboard. "But this doesn't care about money. This doesn't care who I am, and I'm running out of time." She should have stayed quiet, should have nodded sympathetically and backed out of the room. Instead, she found herself saying, "What kind of problem is it?" Lorenzo laughed, but there was no humor in it. A mathematical one, the kind that's impossible to solve unless you're a genius, apparently, and all the geniuses I've hired have failed. Nia's heart pounded. This was the moment, the choice. Stay invisible and safe or step into the light and risk everything. She thought of Kira's medical textbooks, of the cramped apartment with its broken heater, of 5 years spent hiding, pretending to be less than she was, smaller than she was, invisible. "May I look at it?" The words were out before she could stop them. Lorenzo's eyebrows rose. "You understand mathematics?" "A little." She moved closer to the whiteboard, her trained eyes already scanning the equations. I took some college courses before I had to drop out." It was a carefully constructed lie. She had taken college courses. as the instructor, not the student. Lorenzo watched her, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he shrugged. "Be my guest. The professor from Columbia couldn't solve it. But sure, let's see what you've got." Nia studied the board. The problem was complex. A multi-layered algorithmic sequence designed to hide financial transaction patterns. Whoever had created it had been brilliant, but they'd made one small mistake. One tiny oversight in the modular arithmetic that created a vulnerability. She saw it immediately. Her hand moved before she could stop it, picking up the marker. "May I?" Lorenzo nodded, his expression somewhere between amused and curious. Nia wrote quickly, her hand steady despite her racing heart. She isolated the vulnerability, showed how the sequence could be reversed using a specific set of prime numbers, and demonstrated the pattern that would unlock the entire algorithm. The room fell silent. When she finished, she stepped back, suddenly aware of what she'd just done. She'd just revealed herself, shown her hand, exposed the genius she'd kept hidden for 5 years. Lorenzo stood frozen, staring at the whiteboard. Then, slowly, he turned to look at her. "Who are you?" His voice was soft, dangerous, fascinated. "Really?" Nia's hands trembled as she set down the marker. "I'm just a maid, sir." "No." He moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're not. That solution, that's not something you learn in a few college courses. That's doctorate-level work, advanced cryptographic theory. So I'll ask again." He was standing right in front of her now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Who are you?" The door burst open before she could answer. "Boss, we have a problem. The Volkov family just moved up their timeline. They're transferring the money tonight." Lorenzo's jaw clenched. He looked at the whiteboard, then back at Nia, his expression unreadable. "Get Marco in here. Tell him to use this solution." He gestured at the board. "And you," he turned to Nia, "you don't leave this house until we talk. Understood?" Nia nodded, unable to speak. As Lorenzo strode from the room barking orders, she sank into the leather chair and stared at her hands. 5 years of hiding, gone in 5 minutes of mathematics. What had she just done? Nia sat in the small staff lounge, her hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee, waiting. Through the window, she could see the sun setting over New York City, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere in this mansion, Lorenzo was using her solution to expose his rival's criminal operation. And soon, he would come looking for answers she couldn't give. The door opened. Nia's heart jumped. But it was just Maria, one of the other housekeepers, an older woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Mr. Giordano wants you to wait in his private office," Maria said. "He said to tell you he'll be there within the hour." Nia nodded, though her stomach twisted with anxiety. Maria studied her. "Whatever you did, girl, you got his attention, and that's either very good or very dangerous." "Probably both," Nia whispered. Lorenzo's private office was different from his study. Where the study was all business, whiteboards and computers and maps, this room felt personal. Leather-bound books lined the walls. A vintage record player sat in one corner. Photos in silver frames showed a younger Lorenzo with an older couple who had to be his parents, both long dead according to mansion gossip. Nia forced herself not to snoop, though her curious mind catalogued everything. A degree from Oxford on the wall, books on philosophy and military strategy. A worn paperback of Italian poetry on the desk. Lorenzo Giordano wasn't just a mafia boss. He was educated, cultured, complex, dangerous. The door opened, and he walked in, still in his dress shirt and slacks, though he looked less disheveled than before. His expression was unreadable. "It worked," he said without preamble. "Your solution. We traced the money, intercepted the transfer, and now we have evidence of every illegal transaction the Volkov family has made in the past 3 years." He poured himself a drink from the crystal decanter on the sidebar. 3 days of hiring experts, and a maid solves it in 5 minutes. He turned to face her, his dark eyes intense. "So now you're going to tell me the truth?" Nia's mouth went dry. "Sir, let me help you." He set down his glass and moved closer. "You're Dr. Nia Robinson, You earned your PhD in mathematics from MIT at age 22. You published groundbreaking research on cryptographic algorithms. You were being recruited by the NSA, offered positions at top universities. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo, her photo from 5 years ago with shorter hair and glasses, smiling at a university event. And then you vanished, completely, as if you never existed. Nia felt the blood drain from her face. My people are very good at finding information, Lorenzo continued. Once we knew what we were looking for, it took them less than an hour. He studied her. The question is why? Why would one of the brightest mathematical minds in the country be working as a maid in my house? She could lie, she could try to run. But looking at Lorenzo's face, she knew both options were pointless. I'm in witness protection, she said quietly. Unofficially. His eyebrows rose. Explain. Nia took a shaky breath. My stepfather was involved with a criminal organization. Not as high level as you, but dangerous enough. When I was in graduate school, I discovered he was using my research, mathematical models I'd developed, to help launder money. I went to the FBI. I testified. He went to prison. And his associates came after you, Lorenzo finished. They killed my mother. Nia's voice cracked. They made it look like an accident, but I knew. The FBI offered protection, but it wasn't enough. They had people everywhere. So my sister and I ran. We changed our names, our appearances, everything. We've been hiding for 5 years. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, And you chose to work in a Mafia boss's house. That's either brilliant or insane. Both, probably. Nia laughed bitterly. But it was perfect, actually. No background checks that go too deep, cash payments, no questions asked, and who would think to look for a mathematical genius working as a maid? Until you couldn't help yourself and solved an impossible problem. I shouldn't have. She looked up at him. I know that, but I couldn't watch you struggle with something I knew I could fix. I'm sorry, I'll leave tonight. You're not going anywhere. Nia froze. What? Lorenzo moved to his desk, his expression thoughtful. You have a gift, a rare one, and you just helped me solve a problem that could have cost me millions and put my people at risk. He looked at her. I don't waste valuable resources, Dr. Robinson. I'm not a resource, Ma, she said, finding her voice. I'm a person who needs to stay hidden. And I can keep you hidden better than you've been keeping yourself. He leaned against the desk. You think working for minimum wage and living in a studio in a bad neighborhood is safe? You think your fake identity will hold up if anyone looks closely? It's held up for 5 years. Because no one was looking. His voice was gentle but firm. But now that I know who you are, others could figure it out too. The people after you have resources, connections. It's only a matter of time. Nia's hands trembled. She knew he was right. She'd always known their borrowed time would run out eventually. What are you suggesting? Work for me, legitimately. I have problems that require someone with your unique skills. In exchange, I provide protection, real protection, a secure place to live for you and your sister, new identities that will actually hold up under scrutiny, and, he paused, a chance to use your mind again, instead of wasting it scrubbing floors. It was tempting, dangerously tempting. But Nia hadn't survived this long by making impulsive decisions. I need to think about it, she said. Of course. Lorenzo pulled a card from his desk drawer and handed it to her. This is a private number. Call me with your decision by tomorrow night. He walked to the door, then turned back. And Nia, for what it's worth, I'm sorry about your mother. No one should have to lose family because they did the right thing. There was something in his voice, a familiar pain that made her look up. For just a moment, she saw past the powerful Mafia boss to the man underneath. Someone who understood loss, understood sacrifice. Thank you, she whispered. That night, Nia sat in the apartment she shared with Kira and told her everything. He wants you to work for him? Kira's eyes were wide. Nia, he's a Mafia boss. I know. Nia ran her hands through her hair. But he's right about one thing. We can't keep running forever, and if he's offering real protection, or he's offering a cage. Kira grabbed her hand. You'd be trading one dangerous situation for another. Maybe. But at least this dangerous situation comes with the chance to use my brain again, to be who I really am, instead of pretending to be invisible. She looked at her sister. I'm so tired of hiding, Kira. Aren't you? Kira's eyes filled with tears. Every single day. But I'm more tired of being scared, and men like Lorenzo Giordano, they're scary for a reason. Nia didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, thinking about Lorenzo's offer, thinking about the way he'd looked at her when she'd solved his impossible problem, not with contempt or suspicion, but with fascination, respect even, thinking about how her heart had raced when he stood close to her. That was dangerous, more dangerous than anything else. By morning, she'd made her decision. She called the number on his card. He answered on the first ring. I'll do it, she said, but I have conditions. Name them. My sister comes with me. Whatever protection you're offering, it covers her too. She's innocent in all of this. Agreed. What else? I don't do anything illegal. I'll consult on problems, but I won't help with actual criminal activity. There was a pause. Then Lorenzo said, You do realize what I do for a living, right? Yes, and I'm not naive enough to think I can change that, but I won't be directly involved. I won't be complicit. Another pause. Then, fair enough. Anything else? I want to continue my education. Take online courses, work toward publishing again someday. Under a pseudonym, obviously, but still. I need that. I'll arrange it. His voice softened. You really love mathematics, don't you? It's not just what I do, it's who I am. Then you should be allowed to be who you are. Come to the mansion tonight at 8. We'll discuss the details and get you set up in a secure location. Okay. Nia took a deep breath. And Lorenzo, thank you for understanding. Thank me when you see what I'm actually offering, he said, and hung up. That evening, a black SUV arrived at their apartment building. Not just any SUV, one of Lorenzo's with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he bench-pressed small cars for fun. This is really happening, Kira whispered as they climbed in. Too late to back out now, Nia replied, though her heart was hammering. The mansion looked different at night, imposing, almost gothic, lit by elegant landscaping lights. The driver led them not to the main entrance, but to a side door that opened into a private wing. Lorenzo was waiting in a sitting room that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. He'd changed into more casual clothes, jeans and a black sweater that somehow made him look even more attractive. Kira, he said, extending his hand to her sister. I'm Lorenzo, you're welcome here. Kira shook his hand warily. Thank you for including me in this arrangement. Your sister made it a condition. I respect that. He turned to Nia. Let me show you something. He led them through a series of hallways to what looked like a converted carriage house behind the main mansion. Inside, it had been renovated into a modern, secure apartment with 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a living area that was bigger than their entire studio. This is yours, Lorenzo said. Private entrance, security system tied to the main house, but completely separate. No one comes in unless you allow it. Kira gasped. This is incredible. The security is important, Lorenzo continued. Bulletproof windows, reinforced doors, panic button in each room that goes directly to my personal phone. If you're going to be under my protection, I'm going to do it properly. Nia walked through the space, her mind reeling. There was even a study with a desk and a whiteboard, clearly set up for her work. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say you'll have dinner with me tomorrow night. Lorenzo's voice was casual, but when she turned, his expression was intense. I'd like to discuss your first project, and I'd like to get to know the woman behind the mathematics. Warning bells went off in Nia's head. Professional relationships didn't include private dinners. But when she looked at Lorenzo, really looked at him, she saw something that made her hesitate. Interest, yes, but also respect. Curiosity. The same fascination she felt when looking at a complex problem. Okay, she heard herself say. Dinner. But this stays professional. A smile tugged at his lips. Of course, strictly professional. But as he left them to settle in, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a decision that would change everything. Again. And this time, She wasn't sure if she'd solved a problem or created an even bigger one. The next evening, Nia stood in front of her new closet, staring at the meager selection of clothes she owned. Everything was practical, worn, chosen for invisibility. Nothing was appropriate for dinner with Lorenzo Giordano. "Wear the navy dress," Kira called from the doorway. "The one you wore to my nursing school interview." "That's my only decent dress, and it's 3 years old. It's pretty, and it's not trying too hard." Kira came into the room, her expression serious. "Nia, are you sure about this? Having dinner with him?" "It's just a work meeting." "In his private dining room at night, sis, I might be younger, but I'm not blind. He looks at you like you're a puzzle he's desperate to solve." Nia's cheeks flushed. "That's ridiculous. He barely knows me." "Exactly. And he wants to change that." Kira handed her the dress. "Just be careful. Men like him are used to getting what they want. I can handle Lorenzo Giordano. Can you? Because from where I'm standing, you can barely handle being in the same room with him without blushing." Nia didn't have a good response to that. An hour later, she found herself being led through the mansion by one of Lorenzo's staff to a private dining room she'd never seen before. It was intimate. A table set for two, candles flickering, windows overlooking the garden lit by strategically placed lights. Lorenzo stood when she entered, and Nia's breath caught. He wore a dark suit without a tie, the top button of his shirt undone, looking relaxed yet impossibly elegant. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you. This is—" She gestured at the room. "Very professional." He smiled. "I promise this is a working dinner, but I don't see why we can't be comfortable while we work." A staff member appeared with wine and appetizers, and Lorenzo waited until they were alone again before speaking. "I have a problem," he began. "A legitimate one, actually. I'm trying to expand into, let's call them gray area investments. Cryptocurrency, offshore accounts, international trades, all legal technically, but requiring complex financial modeling to predict market movements and minimize risk." Nia relaxed slightly. This was familiar territory. "You need someone who can build predictive algorithms based on market behavior patterns." "Exactly, but more than that." He leaned forward. "I need someone who can see patterns other people miss, who can find connections in data that seem random. You have that gift. You really did your research on me." "I research everything I care about." His eyes held hers. "And I find you." Fascinating. There it was. The line between professional and personal, blurred so smoothly she almost missed it. "Lorenzo," she said carefully, "I appreciate this opportunity, really. But I need to know, what exactly are your expectations here?" He set down his wineglass. "Honest answer, please." "When you solved that problem yesterday, I saw something I rarely see. Someone who understands what it's like to have a mind that works differently, faster, deeper. Someone who has to hide what they're capable of because the world isn't ready for it." He paused. "I've spent my entire life being underestimated or feared, never just seen. And when you looked at that whiteboard, you saw the problem clearly. No ego, no agenda, just pure, brilliant problem solving." Nia's heart raced. "That doesn't answer my question. My expectation is that you'll work for me. Use your incredible mind to help solve problems. In return, you'll be protected, compensated generously, and given the freedom to be yourself for the first time in 5 years. He met her gaze. "Anything beyond that, it's entirely up to you." It was the perfect answer, respectful, clear, leaving the door open without pushing through it, which somehow made him more dangerous. "I can do that," Nia said. "The work part, I mean." "Good." Lorenzo smiled. "Now, let me tell you about the cryptocurrency problem I'm working on. I think you'll find it interesting." And he was right. As he explained the intricate web of international transactions, blockchain technology, and market predictions he was trying to navigate, Nia felt her mind engaging in a way it hadn't in years. She asked questions. He answered them with surprising technical knowledge. They debated approaches, challenged each other's assumptions. By the time dessert arrived, Nia had forgotten to be nervous. She was leaning forward, sketching diagrams on the notepad Lorenzo had provided. explaining how chaos theory could be applied to cryptocurrency markets. "You're magnificent when you talk about mathematics," Lorenzo said suddenly. Nia looked up, startled. "What? Your whole face lights up. You use your hands, you forget to be guarded." He smiled. "It's like watching someone come alive." She felt herself blush. "I've missed it. Talking about this stuff with someone who actually understands. I understand enough to know I'm out of my depth, but I love watching you work." He stood, extending his hand. "Come on. I want to show you something." Against her better judgment, Nia took his hand. He led her through the mansion to yet another room she'd never seen, a library that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with books, a rolling ladder, comfortable chairs, and reading lights everywhere. "This was my grandfather's," Lorenzo said. "He believed that true power came from knowledge, not violence. I spent my childhood in this room, reading everything I could get my hands on." Nia walked along the shelves, trailing her fingers over the spines. "It's beautiful." "It's yours, whenever you want. I know you mentioned wanting to continue your education. Everything you need is here, and anything that isn't, I'll get for you." She turned to face him. "Why are you being so generous?" "Because talent like yours is rare, and it shouldn't be wasted." He moved closer. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped by circumstances beyond your control. Because you remind me that there's more to life than the empire I've built." They were standing close now, close enough that Nia could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell his cologne, could feel the heat radiating from his body. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "Which part, working for me or this?" He gestured between them. "Both, all of it." "Life is dangerous, Nia. The question is whether it's worth the risk." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Lorenzo pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the message. "I need to handle something," he said, his tone shifting instantly from intimate to businesslike. "But we're not done with this conversation." "What conversation?" He smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "The one where you admit you feel this too. Whatever this is." Then he was gone, leaving Nia standing alone in the library, her heart pounding and her mind racing. She couldn't deny it anymore. She was attracted to Lorenzo Giordano, not just physically, though she'd have to be dead not to notice how attractive he was, but intellectually, emotionally. He challenged her, respected her, saw her as an equal in a way no one else ever had. And that was terrifying, because falling for a mafia boss wasn't just dangerous for her heart, it was dangerous for her life, for Kira's life, for everything they'd built over the past 5 years. Nia was still lost in thought when she heard raised voices from somewhere in the mansion. She shouldn't investigate, shouldn't get involved in Lorenzo's business. But her curiosity, the same trait that had made her a brilliant mathematician, won out. She followed the sound to Lorenzo's study, where the door was slightly ajar. Inside, she could see Lorenzo facing down a man she recognized from her first days at the mansion, Marco, his second-in-command. "She's a liability," Marco was saying. "You brought a stranger into our operation, someone who can identify all of us, who knows about the Volkov situation." "She's under my protection," Lorenzo said, his voice deadly calm. "That makes her untouchable. Unless she turns on us, unless she goes back to the FBI with everything she's learned." "She won't." "How can you be sure?" "Because I understand her." Lorenzo's voice softened. "She's not looking for a way out. She's looking for a way to belong. And I'm giving her that." Marco shook his head. "You're making decisions with your heart instead of your head. That's not like you. Maybe it's time I did something that's not like me." Lorenzo walked to the window. "My grandfather built this empire on fear and violence. I've maintained it the same way. But what if there's another way? What if we could be more than just criminals?" "That's naive." "Is it? Or is it evolution?" Lorenzo turned back. "Nia sees the world differently. She solves problems we didn't even know we had. That's valuable, worth protecting, or worth eliminating if she becomes a threat." The temperature in the room dropped. "Let me be very clear, Marco. If anything happens to Nia or her sister, if either of them so much as trips on a crack in the sidewalk, I will hold you personally responsible. And you know what I do to people who threaten what's mine." Marco raised his hands. "I'm just trying to protect you. I don't need protection from her. I need you to make sure everyone else understands that. After Marco left, Nia stood frozen in the hallway, processing what she'd heard. Lorenzo had just declared her untouchable, had defended her against his own people, had called her valuable, worth protecting, had called her his. She should have been angry about that possessiveness, should have been worried about the danger Marco had outlined. Instead, all she could think about was the way Lorenzo had said, "I understand her," as if he really did. As if he saw not just her brilliant mind but the loneliness underneath, the longing to belong somewhere. To someone. The door opened, and Lorenzo found her standing there. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." Nia lifted her chin. "Am I really a liability?" "No. You're an asset. A valuable one." He stepped closer. "But Marco's not entirely wrong. Being close to me is dangerous. People will see you as a way to get to me, a weakness to exploit. So what do? We make sure you're not weak." Lorenzo pulled out his phone. "Starting tomorrow, you're going to learn self-defense. I'm assigning you a security detail, and you're going to start carrying this." He held up a small device. "Panic button. One press, and every man I have will come running." "That seems excessive. That's necessary. If you're going to be in my world, you need to be protected." His jaw tightened. I won't let anything happen to you." The intensity in his voice made Nia's breath catch. "Lorenzo, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Always. What do you want from me, really?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want you to use your brilliant mind to help me build something better than what my grandfather left me. I want you to feel safe for the first time in 5 years. I want you to look at me the way you look at mathematical problems, like I'm fascinating and complex and worth figuring out." He paused. "And I want you to stop running from whatever this is between us. There's nothing between us, liar." But he said it gently, almost fondly. "You feel it too. The connection, the pull, the sense that somehow, despite every reason we shouldn't, we understand each other." He was right. And that terrified her. "I can't," Nia whispered. "I can't let myself feel anything for you. It's too dangerous, too complicated." "Life is dangerous and complicated with or without me in it." Lorenzo reached out, his fingers barely brushing her cheek. "At least with me, you get to be yourself while you're living it." Before she could respond, before she could talk herself out of it, Nia stood on her tiptoes and kissed him. It was brief, impulsive, probably the stupidest thing she'd ever done. But the moment their lips touched, Nia felt something click into place, like solving the final piece of an impossible equation. When she pulled back, Lorenzo's eyes were dark with desire and surprise. "That," he said softly, "was unexpected." "That was a mistake," Nia corrected, though her racing heart suggested otherwise. "No." Lorenzo's hand moved to the back of her neck, gentle but firm. "That was inevitable." And then he kissed her back, properly this time, and Nia forgot every reason why this was a terrible idea. Forgot about the danger, the complications, the fact that he was a mafia boss and she was supposed to be invisible. All she knew was that for the first time in 5 years, she felt alive. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo rested his forehead against hers. "We're going to have to figure this out," he said. "I know. But not tonight. Tonight, you should go back to your apartment, process everything, and tomorrow we'll talk about what this means." It was the responsible thing to do, the smart thing. Nia hated how disappointed she felt. "Okay," she said. "Tomorrow." But as she walked back through the mansion to her new apartment, Nia knew that everything had just changed. She'd spent 5 years hiding, running, pretending to be less than she was. Now she'd kissed a mafia boss, revealed her genius, stepped into the light, and there was no going back. The next morning, Nia woke up to find a gift box outside her door. Inside was a smartphone, not just any phone, but a high-end model she could never have afforded. and a note in elegant handwriting. Your old phone wasn't secure. This one is. My number is programmed in. Call me when you're ready to talk. Kira appeared in the doorway, already dressed in her scrubs for her nursing clinical. Did something happen last night? Why would you think that? Because you're holding $1,000 phone and smiling like an idiot. Nia set down the phone. I kissed him. You what? I kissed Lorenzo. Well, technically I kissed him first, then he kissed me back, and it was. Kira, it was incredible. Her sister sat down on the bed, her expression torn between excitement and worry. Okay. Let's think about this logically. You're attracted to him. He's clearly attracted to you, but Nia, he's a mafia boss. People like him don't have normal relationships. They have complications, danger, enemies who would love to hurt someone he cares about. I know all that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're thinking with your heart instead of your brilliant brain. Nia couldn't argue with that. Maybe for once I should. I've been thinking my way through life for 5 years, and where has it gotten me? Hiding, alone, pretending to be someone I'm not. But alive, Kira said softly. We're alive because you were smart, because you were careful. And miserable. Kira, when I'm with him I feel like myself again, like I matter, like I'm more than just someone running from the past. Kira sighed. I can't tell you what to do, but promise me you'll be careful. Your heart might be ready to trust Lorenzo Giordano, but I need more proof. Fair enough. After Kira left for school, Nia spent the morning setting up her new study. Lorenzo had provided everything she'd requested: high-end computer, mathematical software, access to academic journals, even printed textbooks on advanced cryptography. She was deep in a problem set when her new phone buzzed. Lorenzo. Working already? I'm impressed. Nia smiled despite herself and typed back. Old habits. Thank you for the phone and everything else. Lorenzo. Have lunch with me, 1 p.m. I'm sending a car. She should have said no, should have maintained some professional distance after last night's kiss. Instead, she found herself typing, okay. The car arrived precisely at 1 p.m., driven by the same intimidating man from before, though this time, he introduced himself as Marcus and actually smiled. Boss says you're family now, Marcus said as they drove through the city. That means you get the full security treatment. Anyone bothers you, you call me directly. Family? Nia's heart raced at the word. Lorenzo doesn't use that word lightly. He's protective of the people he cares about. They pulled up not to the mansion, but to an elegant Italian restaurant with blacked-out windows. Marcus led her inside, where Lorenzo waited at a private table in the back. He stood when she approached, and Nia's breath caught. In the daylight, streaming through a skylight above, he looked somehow more real, more human. The powerful mafia boss replaced by a man who looked genuinely happy to see her. You came, he said. You knew I would. I hoped. He pulled out her chair. I wasn't sure after last night if you'd have second thoughts. I had about 1 million second thoughts, Nia admitted as she sat, but I came anyway. Why? She looked at him directly. Because I'm tired of running. From my past. From my feelings. From the possibility that something good might happen if I just let it. Lorenzo's expression softened. Then let's talk about what that means. For both of us. Over lunch, incredible pasta that Nia barely tasted, they talked. Really talked. Lorenzo told her about growing up in the Mafia, how his father had been murdered when he was 16, forcing him to take over the family business, how he'd spent 20 years building an empire he wasn't sure he even wanted anymore. I keep thinking about what my grandfather said before he died, Lorenzo admitted. He told me that power without purpose is just tyranny, that the family needed to evolve or die. I thought he was weak, sentimental. But now you're not so sure, Nia finished. Now I think he might have been right. Lorenzo reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You make me want to be better, to build something that isn't just based on fear and violence. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you barely know. I know you better than you think. I know you're brilliant but humble, strong but vulnerable, hiding but desperately wanting to be seen. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I know you kiss like you're afraid of wanting it too much, and I know you taste like hope. Nia's cheeks flushed. That's very poetic for a mafia boss. My mother was a poet. She taught me that words matter. His expression grew serious. So here are some words that matter. I want this. You and me. Whatever this becomes. But only if you want it too, only if you're willing to take the risk. The risk of falling for a dangerous man? The risk of letting yourself be happy. It was such a simple statement. But it hit Nia like a mathematical proof, suddenly clicking into place. She'd been so focused on staying safe, staying hidden, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to want something. To choose something instead of just surviving. I want to try, she said softly. But Lorenzo, I need you to understand something. I can't. I won't be involved in anything illegal. I can't testify again. I can't lose another person I love to this world. You won't. I promise you, Nia, I will keep you separate from anything that could put you in that position. He squeezed her hand. And I will protect you, with everything I have. That's what scares me, the protection, the possessiveness. I've spent 5 years being independent, and now you're not alone anymore. Lorenzo leaned forward. I'm not trying to control you or own you. I'm trying to give you the freedom to be yourself without fear. There's a difference. Was there? Nia wanted to believe him, but she'd seen too much of what men with power could do. As if reading her mind, Lorenzo said, "Let me prove it to you. Take as much time as you need. Work on the projects I give you. Get to know me. And if you ever feel like this isn't what you want, you can walk away. No consequences, no threats, just walk away. You'd really let me go?" His jaw tightened. It would kill me. But yes, your freedom is more important than my wants. It was exactly the right thing to say, which made Nia suspicious. You're too perfect, she said. Too understanding. Too good at saying what I need to hear. Lorenzo laughed. Trust me, I'm far from perfect. Ask Marco about the vase I threw last week when a deal went wrong. Or the 3 men currently in the hospital because they tried to betray me. I'm violent, possessive, and I have a temper when people threaten what's mine. So the perfect gentleman act isn't an act. It's who I choose to be with you. He met her eyes. Because you deserve someone who sees your value, who respects your mind, who wants you to flourish, not shrink. Damn him for being so perfect. Okay, Nia said. Let's try this, but slowly. No more surprise kisses, no assumptions. We figure this out together. Deal. Lorenzo raised his wine glass. To figuring it out. Nia clinked her glass against his, and for a moment she let herself believe this could work. Then Lorenzo's phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and his expression went from relaxed to deadly in seconds. I need to handle something, he said, standing abruptly. Marcus will take you back to the mansion. Stay there. Don't leave until you hear from me. What's wrong? Someone just tried to hack our financial systems, using a method that looks very similar to the one you showed me. Nia's blood ran cold. That's impossible. The only people who know about that solution are you, your team, and whoever you learned it from. Lorenzo's eyes were hard. Nia, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there any chance someone from your past could have tracked you here? No, I've been so careful, we both have. Then we have a leak in my organization. Someone who saw your work and sold the information. He pulled out his phone. I'm doubling your security and Kira's until we figure out who's behind this. Lorenzo, I'm sorry. If I'd known, this isn't your fault. He cupped her face in his hands. But it means things just got more dangerous. For both of us. He kissed her quickly. Then he was gone, leaving Nia sitting alone at the table with a terrible realization settling in her stomach. Someone knew she was here, knew what she could do, and was using that knowledge against Lorenzo, which meant her past and her present had just collided in the worst possible way. Back at the mansion, Nia found Kira already there, surrounded by 3 serious-looking security guards. What's happening? Kira demanded. They pulled me out of class and brought me here. Nia quickly explained the situation. As she talked, she watched her sister's face shift from confusion to fear to anger. So we're not safe here either, Kira said when she finished. We're never safe. We're never going to be free of this. We will be. Lorenzo will figure out who... Lorenzo. 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 Kira's voice rose. You barely know him, Nia. You're trusting our lives to a man you kissed once. He's protected us more in 3 days than we've managed to protect ourselves in 5 years. Because he wants something from you. Your brain, your skills, maybe more. But don't confuse that with caring about us. The words stung because part of Nia worried Kira was right. How well did she really know Lorenzo? How much of this was genuine and how much was manipulation? I'm sorry, Kira said after a moment. I'm scared. And when I'm scared, I lash out. I know. Nia hugged her sister. I'm scared, too. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the apartment, surrounded by security, waiting for news. Nia tried to work on her problems, but her mind kept spinning through possibilities. Who could have leaked the information? How did they know about her? At 8 p.m., Lorenzo finally called. We found him, one of Marco's assistants. He photographed your solution and sold it to our competitors. What happens to him? There was a pause. You don't want to know. Nia's stomach turned. Lorenzo, he betrayed us, put you in danger. In my world, that has consequences. Don't kill him because of me. I'm not. I'm eliminating a threat to my organization. You just happen to be part of that organization now. His voice softened. This is what I am, Nia. This is the world you're stepping into. I won't apologize for protecting what's mine. I'm not yours, aren't you? The question hung in the air, because the truth was, Nia was starting to feel like she was his, like they belonged to each other in some indefinable way, and that scared her more than any physical threat. I need to think, she said. Then think, but do it safely. I'm keeping security on you and Kira until we're sure there are no other leaks. After hanging up, Nia stood at the window, watching the lights of the city. Kira came up beside her. Are you having second thoughts? Her sister asked. About which part? All of it. Lorenzo. This new life. Everything. Nia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You know what the weird thing is? Even with everything that happened today, the danger, the fear, the reminder of what Lorenzo really is, I still feel safer here than I did for the last 5 years. That's called Stockholm Syndrome, sis. Or it's called finally having someone powerful enough to actually protect us. Nia turned to face Kira. I know this is scary. I know Lorenzo is dangerous. But maybe we need dangerous. Maybe we need someone who's willing to fight for us instead of just running with us. Kira sighed. You're falling for him. I think I already fell. Then I hope he catches you, because if he hurts you, I don't care how powerful he is. I'll find a way to make him pay. Nia smiled despite everything. That's why I love you. That night, Nia lay in bed, unable to sleep. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lorenzo. Are you awake? Nia. Unfortunately. Lorenzo, come to the garden, East Gate. There's something I want to show you. She should have stayed in bed. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, she pulled on a jacket and slipped out into the night. The garden was beautiful in the darkness, lit by strings of lights woven through the trees. Lorenzo waited by a fountain, looking up at the stars. You came, he said without turning around. You knew I would. I hoped. He gestured for her to join him. Look up. Nia did. The stars were bright despite the city lights, forming patterns she'd studied in astrophysics classes years ago. My mother used to bring me out here when I was a kid, Lorenzo said. She'd point out constellations and tell me stories. She said the stars were proof that even in darkness there's always light. She sounds wonderful. She was. She died when I was 12, cancer. His voice was rough. My father never recovered. That's when he really dove into the family business. Like if he worked hard enough, fought hard enough, he could control death itself. But you can't, Nia said softly. No, you can't. He looked at her. That's what I realized today. When I thought someone might hurt you, I understood why my father became who he became. The desperation to protect the people you love. The willingness to do terrible things to keep them safe. Lorenzo, I need you to understand something, Nia. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you walk away if you knew the details. But with you I want to be better. I want to be the man my mother raised instead of the monster my father created. Nia reached for his hand. You're not a monster. How do you know? Because monsters don't care about being better. They don't stand in gardens talking about their mothers. They don't ask permission before kissing someone. They don't offer freedom even when they want possession. She moved closer. You're a complicated man in an impossible situation, but you're not a monster. Lorenzo pulled her into his arms, and Nia let herself be held. Let herself feel safe for the first time in years. Stay with me, he whispered. Not just tonight, but really stay. Build something with me. A life that's more than just hiding and surviving. What if I'm not strong enough for your world? You solved an impossible problem in 5 minutes. You testified against criminals despite the risk. You've protected your sister for 5 years while staying one step ahead of dangerous people. He pulled back to look at her. Nia, you're the strongest person I know. And then he kissed her, and Nia stopped thinking about danger and consequences and all the reasons this was a terrible idea. All she knew was that she was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being alone. Maybe it was time to take a risk. Maybe it was time to let herself be happy, even if it meant falling for a Mafia boss. The next week passed in a blur of work, security briefings, and stolen moments with Lorenzo. Nia found herself settling into a routine. Mornings working on cryptocurrency algorithms, afternoons learning self-defense from Marcus, evenings having dinner with Lorenzo, where they talked about everything from philosophy to favorite movies. It felt almost normal. If normal included armed guards and encrypted phones and the constant awareness that she was falling for one of the most dangerous men in New York. Kira was slowly warming up to the situation, especially after Lorenzo arranged for her to attend a better nursing program with a full scholarship. He's still a criminal, she told Nia, but he's a criminal who cares about education, so I'll give him that. Everything seemed to be falling into place, until it wasn't. Nia was in Lorenzo's study working on a particularly complex financial model when his phone rang. She watched his expression change from focused to shocked to furious in seconds. When? He snapped into the phone. How did they get past security? He hung up and immediately started making more calls, his voice rapid-fire Italian that Nia was just barely able to follow. What's wrong? She finally asked. Lorenzo looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw real fear in his eyes. Someone just kidnapped Marco's daughter, left a note demanding the algorithms you've been working on, and... He hesitated. And they mentioned you by name. The room spun. What? They know you're here. They know what you're doing, and they're using a child to force my hand. Then give them the algorithms, Nia said immediately. I can rewrite them. Create new ones. A little girl's life is more important than... It's not that simple. Lorenzo ran his hands through his hair. If I give them what they want, it proves that threatening my people works. Every rival, every enemy will target anyone close to us. We'll never be safe. So what do? We find her and we end this. His jaw set in a hard line. But first, I need to know something. These people who are after you, the ones from your past, could they be behind this? Nia thought fast. My stepfather's organization was regional, small-time compared to you. This feels bigger, more coordinated. That's what I thought. Lorenzo pulled up a photo on his phone. Do you recognize this man? Nia looked at the image and felt her blood run cold. That's Dr. Richard Chen. He was one of my professors at MIT. And he tried to take credit for my research. When I refused to put his name on my papers, he made my life hell, spread rumors, tried to get me dismissed. She looked up at Lorenzo. But that was years ago. Why would he? Because people like him don't forget being told no. Lorenzo's expression was grim. My people traced the hack back to him. He's been selling cryptographic solutions to various criminal organizations, and when he saw your name connected to me, he saw an opportunity. To get revenge and make money at the same time, Nia finished. Oh God, this is my fault. If you hadn't solved my problem, we wouldn't have known he was a threat until it was too late. Lorenzo cupped her face. This isn't on you, but I need your help to end it. Anything. What do you need? I need you to give me a fake solution. Something that looks right but will fail at the critical moment. Can you do that? Nia's mind was already working through the possibilities. Yes, I can create an algorithm that seems perfect, but has a fatal flaw embedded in the core sequence. It won't be obvious until they try to implement it. How long? Give me 2 hours. You have 1. Nia worked faster than she ever had in her life, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She built an elegant trap, a mathematical solution that would appear flawless to anyone who didn't understand the underlying theory, but would catastrophically fail when put into practice. Lorenzo watched over her shoulder, occasionally asking questions that showed he understood more than she'd given him credit for. "You really did pay attention in those classes," she said. "I pay attention to everything that matters." His hand rested on her shoulder. "And you matter more than you know." When she finished, Lorenzo made a call. "We have what they want. Set up the exchange." "Wait," Nia said. "They're going to want me there to verify the solution works. You know that, right? Which is why you're staying here, surrounded by security where you're safe. Lorenzo, if I'm not there, they'll know something's wrong. They'll hurt that little girl." "Absolutely not. I'm not putting you in danger. You don't have a choice." Nia stood, meeting his eyes. "I'm going. If you care about me, if you respect me, then trust me to make my own decisions about my safety. I can't lose you. And I can't live with myself if a child dies because I was too afraid to help." She grabbed his hand. "I've spent 5 years running. I'm done. Let me be brave. Let me help." Lorenzo closed his eyes, clearly warring with himself. Finally he said, "You wear a wire. You stay in my sight at all times. And at the first sign of trouble, you hit your panic button and let my men handle it. Deal." 2 hours later, Nia found herself in an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront, surrounded by Lorenzo's security team. Dr. Chen stood in the center of the space, flanked by armed men with Marco's 6-year-old daughter held by one of his associates. "Dr. Robinson," Chen said with a smile that made Nia's skin crawl. "Still solving other people's problems, I see. Some things never change." "Let the girl go," Nia said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Then you can have the solution. First, verify it works. First, release the child." Chen's smile faded. "You're in no position to negotiate." "Actually, I am." Nia pulled out her phone, where the algorithm was displayed. "You want this? Prove you're not completely irredeemable. Let the little girl go to her father." A tense moment passed. Then Chen nodded, and his associate released the child. Marco rushed forward, scooping up his daughter and immediately retreating to where Lorenzo's men waited. "Now," Chen said, "the solution." Nia walked forward slowly, showing him the screen. It's elegant, really. A multi-layered encryption using modular arithmetic and elliptic curve integration. The key is in how the prime numbers interact with... I don't need a lecture. Does it work? It works. Nia met his eyes. "But you should know, Professor. I learned something important over the past 5 years. Brilliance without ethics is just manipulation," says the woman working for the Mafia. Says the woman who chose to use her gifts to protect people instead of exploiting them. Chen snatched the phone from her hand. "We're done here." "Not quite," Lorenzo said, stepping out from the shadows. Suddenly the warehouse was full of his men, all armed, all trained on Chen and his associates. "You made a critical mistake, Professor. You threatened my family, and in my world that has consequences. You gave me what I wanted," Chen said, though his confidence was fading. "We had a deal. We did. And I kept my end. I gave you a solution." Lorenzo smiled, cold and dangerous. "I just didn't say it would be the right one, did I, Nia?" "No," Nia said quietly. "You didn't." Chen's face went pale as he realized he'd been played. "Your algorithm has a fatal flaw," Lorenzo continued, "one that will expose anyone who tries to use it. By tomorrow, every law enforcement agency in the country will know exactly who's attempting to implement your stolen cryptographic solutions." He stepped closer. "Congratulations, Professor. You just incriminated yourself and every criminal you've sold to. You can't—" "I already did." Lorenzo's voice was ice. "And now you're going to disappear. Not dead, I'm not that merciful, but you'll wish you were. My people have a place prepared for men who threaten children. You'll spend the rest of your life regretting the day you heard Nia's name." What happened next was a blur. Lorenzo's men moved in, subduing Chen and his associates with brutal efficiency. Nia was escorted back to the SUV, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Lorenzo slid in beside her. "You were incredible." "I was terrified." "That's what makes you brave. Being scared and doing it anyway." He pulled her into his arms. "But don't ever do that to me again. My heart can't take it." Despite everything, Nia laughed. "Says the man who runs a criminal empire. Running an empire is easy. Falling in love with a brilliant woman who keeps putting herself in danger? That's hard." Nia froze. "What did you just say?" Lorenzo pulled back to look at her. "I said I'm falling in love with you. Actually, that's a lie. I've already fallen. I think I started falling the moment you picked up that marker and solved my impossible problem. Lorenzo, I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know I'm not who you should want." His hand cupped her cheek. "But I love you, Nia Robinson. I love your brilliant mind and your brave heart, and the way you see the world as a series of problems waiting to be solved. I love that you make me want to be better, and I promise you, I will spend every day proving that I'm worth the risk you took on me." Tears streamed down Nia's face. "I love you too. God help me. I love you too." And then they were kissing, desperate and relieved and full of the kind of joy that comes from surviving something terrible together. When they finally broke apart, Lorenzo rested his forehead against hers. "Come home with me, really home, not as my employee or someone under my protection, but as my partner, my equal, my future." "Yes," Nia whispered. "Yes to all of it." Later that night, after statements had been given to Lorenzo's lawyers, after Marco had thanked Nia a dozen times for saving his daughter, after Kira had hugged her so tight she couldn't breathe, Nia stood in Lorenzo's private quarters for the first time. It was surprisingly simple, elegant but not ostentatious. Books everywhere, photos of his family, a worn guitar in the corner that she hadn't known he played. "This is really you," she said. "Not the boss, not the empire, just you. Just me." Lorenzo came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "And I want you to know all of it. The good, the bad, the complicated. I want that too." Nia turned in his arms. "But Lorenzo, I need you to understand something. I can't go back to hiding, to pretending to be less than I am. If we do this, I need to be able to work, to research, to contribute to the world. I know. And I want that for you." He kissed her forehead. "I've been thinking about what you said, about brilliance without ethics. What if we used your gifts and my resources to actually help people, to build something legitimate alongside the empire?" "What are you suggesting?" "A foundation, a research institute, something that uses mathematics and technology to solve real problems, money laundering detection, financial fraud prevention. You could run it. Hire brilliant people, make a real difference." He smiled. "My grandfather always said the family needed to evolve. Maybe this is how we do it. Not by abandoning who we are, but by becoming something more." Nia stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. I want to give you everything, Nia. Not just protection and security, but purpose, freedom. A chance to be exactly who you were meant to be." It was too perfect, too good to be true. And yet, looking at Lorenzo's face, Nia knew he meant every word. "Okay," she said, "let's build something together, something that matters. Starting right now." Lorenzo lifted her into his arms, making her laugh. "Because I've waited long enough to have you in my bed, in my life, in my future." "Is that so?" "That's so. Unless you want to keep talking about mathematics and criminal enterprises." "Maybe later," Nia said, pulling him down for a kiss. "Much later." And as Lorenzo carried her to his bedroom, as they lost themselves in each other, Nia realized something profound. She'd spent 5 years looking for safety, for a place to hide, for a way to survive. But what she'd found was so much more. She'd found a partner who saw her completely, loved her unconditionally, and challenged her to be brave enough to live instead of just exist. She'd found home, not in a place, but in a person. And that was worth every risk. 3 years later, Nia stood in front of a room full of reporters and academics, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly, and smiled as she announced the latest breakthrough from the Robinson-Giordano Research Institute. Our new algorithm has successfully identified and prevented over $2 billion in financial fraud in the past year, she said, and we're just getting started. The questions came fast and furious, but Nia handled them with confidence. She'd published 3 papers under her real name in the past 2 years, earning international recognition for her work. The Institute employed 50 brilliant minds, all working on projects that used mathematics to fight crime, corruption, and injustice. It was everything she'd dreamed of, and more. Lorenzo waited backstage, their 2-year-old son, Marco, named after the man who'd become family, balanced on his hip. When she finished, he handed her their child and pulled her close. "You were magnificent," he said. "I had a good teacher." She kissed him. "Someone who taught me that being brilliant didn't mean I had to be invisible. And you taught me that power doesn't have to mean violence. That legacy can be about building something instead of destroying everything." Kira appeared with her nursing degree freshly framed. "They want family photos for the press release." Family. That's what they'd become. Kira had a job at the best hospital in the city. Marco's daughter was in private school, thriving. And the Giordano Empire had slowly transformed into something that still held power, but used it differently. Not perfectly. Lorenzo was still Lorenzo. Still dangerous when threatened, still willing to do whatever it took to protect his family. But he'd kept his promise. He'd evolved. They'd evolved together. As they posed for photos, Nia, Lorenzo, their son, Kira, and the extended family they'd built, Nia thought back to that day 3 years ago when she'd stood in Lorenzo's study with a marker in her hand, making the choice to step out of the shadows. It had been the scariest decision of her life, and the best one she'd ever made, because sometimes the impossible problem isn't the one on the whiteboard. Sometimes it's finding the courage to be yourself, to love openly, to build something meaningful, and to trust that taking the risk will lead somewhere beautiful. Nia had solved her impossible problem, and the solution was standing right beside her, holding their son, looking at her like she was the most valuable equation he'd ever encountered. "I love you," Lorenzo whispered in her ear. "I love you too, even though you're still terrible at calculus." He laughed, loud and genuine. "Good thing I have you to solve all my impossible problems." "Good thing," Nia agreed, leaning into his embrace. And as the cameras flashed and their family smiled, Nia realized that sometimes the best solutions are the ones you never saw coming. The ones that find you when you're brave enough to stop hiding. The ones that prove that love, like mathematics, has an elegant logic all its own. And when you find the right equation, when all the variables align. The answer is always beautiful. This story has come to an end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories arrive soon. Until next time.